warm welcome to this short video. I want to show you my opinion on the importance of the breeder's eye. My name is Friedrich Longin and I'm a professor for plant breeding at the University of Hohenheim. I've worked in private industry for maize breeding, and now here in Hohenheim I'm responsible for elite breeding in durum wheat, spelt wheat, emmer einkorn wheat and pre-breeding in bred wheat. We deal here roughly with a pedigree breeding scheme, but it can be extended also to other breeding schemes, because we are here in a self-fertilizing crop in wheat. When you want to know more about pedigree selection, please have a look in that YouTube video here. A rough scheme of pedigree selection is that you have a crossing in the first year, followed with a selfing in the F1 generation in the second year, and then breeding starts because segregation starts with the early generations, which are normally at one locations, the later generations where we have yield trials and where we have in parallel observation trials for stress like frost, heat, drought, or special diseases like rust or fusarium. And to my opinion, we have to separate the visual scoring, the breeder's eye importance, in three sections. First, in the early generation selection. No doubt, here the breeder's eye is very important because you make all the decisions based on individual scorings or selections directly at the plant in the field. Second, although of very high importance is the breeder's eye in observation trials, where you look for frost, for instance, or these special diseases, where you inoculate with special diseases, or where you have a large disease pressure. Certain regions of the globe where you go to have natural infection and make your scorings, and at the end you make calculations based on the scorings, only on the visual scorings. And third are the yield trials. Yield trials, to my opinion, you have a bit different way of scoring. For me, the quality management of the trials is the most important one when you visit trials, to see whether the seeds are in the correct place of the randomization, when you watch out the checks, whether there is a general trend or the general quality of the location. Maybe you have too much herbs, or you see a bit of flooding, or you see a trend where you have lower productivity at the beginning of the trial and larger productivity of the soil in the ending of the trial. And the third one is whether there are specific damages in single plots, which you should note to have at the end an information why the yield, for instance, was lower for that particular variety only at that single location. And for me, as a secondary importance is only the general notations you do here for heading and plant height and maybe look or ideotype, because at the end, for me, yield trials, the most important thing is yield coming from the combined harvester. And now I invite you to have a look on these three different visual scorings in the field.
Here we are in the F2 generation in pre-breeding, the start where we can select. And you see a big variation, plant height, ear color. And we start here with single plant selection. Here, for instance, correct plant height. Those are too tall. And you continue here, further one with correct plant height. F3 selection in the pre-breeding program. One row is one genotype. Here, 1, 2, 3. We see large differences in plant height. The left one too tall, and the mid one is heterogeneous, completely ill, and the right one is green, correct plant height, and therefore selected. You see the red color already marked. This is a disease platform where breeding material is tested for disease resistance. You see here single plots of square meter, which difference large in disease resistance. Here, intermediate resistant one, completely killed by diseases. Here a bit better, and a quite healthy one. For yield trial observation, there are, to my opinion, three important things to have a look on when a breeder visits the location. First is whether you can see general trends in the field with problems arising from herbs or anything else. Second thing is that you try to look where are your checks, because they you recognize normally in color or in shape, and that you check that they are this correct positions to be sure that the trial is correct. For instance, here it's easy. The two checks are left one very white one, right one a red ear one, easy to see. And finally, it's important that you identify problems in plots. For instance, here in that yield plot, there is a problem coming from an animal having run through. That means 10% lower ears at harvest is a reduction of yield in this single plot. Or here behind in that region, you see that in the middle of the plot the ears are higher, and you see that this general trend occurs also in the plots behind, and when you go to the front to the plot it's lower. That means also here some error comes from field trialing. That's, for my opinion, the most important things to have a look at, and all the notations, plant height heading for sure also important, yield you get from the combine harvester, but the general impressions of the plots you can do, but is, to my opinion, of secondary importance compared to the first three things told to you.
In future we might stick to drones and other automatic visual observation technologies, but to my opinion it rests the same with the hierarchy I've shown you for visual selection in breeding. Thanks a lot.